Hi guys, welcome. My name is Simone, and I'm here today to teach you about how to find out what type of career is good for you based on your natal chart in astrology. And we're going to go over the basic concepts, looking at both planets and the houses that rule career generally, and what kinds of things we can get from each of those. We have somebody who has generously offered to share their chart with us today. So we're going to take a look at M's chart in consideration with career. And as a thank you for letting us look at their chart, we're going to share some information about their career and what their career could be. So firstly, I'm going to go over what kinds of things are included in a career reading when we look at astrology. And then we're going to do an actual reading so you guys can see an example of what it looks like. There are three houses that we look at when we're considering career, but number one is the 10th house and the midhaven. So you can find those things right here. This is where the 10th house is, and it's going to be, slightly different on everybody's chart, but you just look for the number 10, and that's where that is. And then you're going to be looking for something called the MC, which is also called the midhaven. Okay. So wherever this is placed in your chart is going to signify what kinds of careers are good for your type of personality based on your astrology chart. The next house that we're going to look at is the sixth house. Okay, so the sixth house can be found here, and we can take a look at that. That's the second house that we look at, for including career. And then the third house that we look at is the second house. Okay, so let's go through what each of these houses mean, starting with the 10th house. The 10th house is the career house. The 10th house is the house that rules things like your public image, your career, how you stand out in your community, what people think of you, your profession, and basically your reputation. So those are the things that the 10th house rules. The sixth house rules something completely, well, not completely different, but some different things in the sixth house. So the sixth house is all about service and health. So basically, what kinds of things can you do to help other people? And why is this relevant to your career? Because most people with their careers are going to be providing some sort of service to other people, unless you manufacture something or, unless you're part of the primary sector, which is uncommon, but not completely impossible. Most people are going to be doing some kind of service. This house also rules health. So you can find information there about, what sorts of things are important to that person as far as how they serve other people and how they help other people heal, if that's part of their code, so to speak, in astrology. The second house is the house of money. So the house of money is how you earn money. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to do with your career, but it is sort of in alignment with your career because it has to do with possessions that are going to come into your life and how you earn money. Okay, so this is important in that aspect. So let's imagine that I'm looking at this person's chart. I'm looking at M's chart, and I'm trying to figure out for her what it is that would be good for her career. So I'm going to look at a couple of things. Okay. First thing that I'm going to look at here is her 10th house and which planets are inside her 10th house. Okay. So we can see that inside her 10th house, we've got Neptune and we've got Uranus. Okay. And then the second thing that I'm going to look at her 10th house is uh, where her midhaven is. Okay. And also I'm going to note what sign her 10th house is in. So in this case, it's in Sagittarius. And so I'm going to notice those basic things, what planets are in her 10th house, what sign her 10th house is in, what sign her midhaven is in. Okay, so that would be the first thing that I would look at. The second thing I would look at would be, where is her sixth house, right? So we talked about the sixth house as how do you serve other people? And we would look to see if there are any planets in her sixth house. And as you can see, it is empty. Okay, so there's nothing in her sixth house for service, which doesn't necessarily mean anything except for that's how it is. Okay. So I'm looking at her sixth house and I'm seeing that there aren't any planets in her sixth house. But the next thing that I'm looking at for her sixth house is what sign is it in? And we can see here that her sixth house is in Leo. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to be looking for is her second house. And I can see that her second house has the North Node in it. Now, the North Node is not a planet, but the North Node is one of the things that we would look at for her career. The North Node is a topic for another video, but I'm going to also be looking at what sign her second house is in. Okay. So that's the order that I would go in to begin starting to look at somebody's career: 10th house, 6th house, and second house. Are there any planets in there, slash things like the North Node? And what signs are those houses in? Because each of those houses, each of those planets, and each of those signs have properties, and they all work together. So Aries and Sagittarius and Leo are all fire signs. So we know that she is going to have a certain amount of fire energy in her career. Now, that interpretation depends on the astrologer, but that's just one of the things that we would notice from her chart. So that's the very first thing that I would look at. Then the next thing I would look at after I look at the 10th house, the 6th house, and the second house is I'm going to look at the two planets that I consider rule career mostly, and that is Jupiter and Saturn. Here is the sign for Jupiter. Oops, let me just actually scroll up a little bit. There we go, so we can see everything. Okay. Here is the sign for Jupiter, and it is just right here in the 12th house under Aquarius. So now I know that Jupiter, one of the signs that rules career, is in the 12th house in Aquarius. So I know that Jupiter's in Aquarius, and I know that Jupiter's in the 12th house. The second sign I'm going to look for is Saturn. Saturn, I know, is in Sagittarius, and I know that it is in the 9th house. Okay. So that's the next thing that I look for. After I look at the 10th, the 6th, and the second house, I'll look at the two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, and figure out where they are. Okay. And that will tell me information about those two planets. It can be hard to explain. Everybody has their own sort of process and how they do that, but those are the things that I'm going to look for. Where is Jupiter? What does it mean when it's placed in Aquarius? What kind of energy does that give us? What does it mean when it's placed in the 12th house? What kind of energy does that give us? So I look at it through those lenses. I look at the 10th house, I look at the 6th house, and I look at the second house. I look at Jupiter, and I look at Saturn to begin with. Now, finally, I'm going to look at the big three. So the big three, which we've seen in a previous video, and I will link that for you guys over there somewhere so that you can find out what the big three is and more information about that. But the big three are your sun sign, your moon sign, and your ascendant sign. So for M, her sun sign obviously is Aquarius. And you can see that on her chart by looking for this little symbol here, which is the sun symbol, and where the line is. And you can see that the line is just right here inside of Aquarius. Okay. Then we know her moon sign is over here. And we can see that her moon sign, kind of hard to see, is right there in Gemini. Okay. So you can see that her moon sign is in Gemini. And then the final one that we're going to look at it is the AC, which is the ascendant or rising sign. So we can see that her ascendant rising sign is pretty squarely in Pisces. Okay. So those are just things that I keep in mind. Those don't necessarily have to have any bearing on career, but they do sort of give you the broad strokes of her personality and how she might approach things, which of course is important for interpreting her career, right? Because Aquarians will come at things in a certain way. Ascendant Pisces will come at things in a certain way. And moon in Gemini, I believe it's hard for me to see it. Moon in Gemini will come at things in a certain way. Okay. So they're not exact markers for career, but they do help me to understand the person as a whole. All right. So as a thank you, that's basically, if you guys have any questions, which I'm sure you do, because I just threw a lot at you, especially if you're a beginner. just go ahead and pop those in the comment section below. I'd be happy to answer as many questions as I can get to, share videos on further topics. And if you guys do ask questions, that actually gives me an idea of what kind of topics I can help you with and make more videos on. So don't be shy about the questions if you have any. And as a thank you to Em, we're going to go ahead and do a little interpretation of her chart. And her basic question was just, what career is best suited for me? And I don't have any other information about that as far as what her current career is or what she would like to do or anything like that. So it's sort of a blind reading, if you will. But yeah, we're going to find out what we can find out. So like I said before, we're going to start in the 10th house. And the 10th house is the ruler of career. And we've got 2 planets in there. We've got Neptune, which is a really exciting one to have in the 10th house. And we've got Uranus. So why is Neptune exciting for me in the 10th house? Neptune is, okay, so there's a famous example of somebody with Neptune in their 10th house, in their career house. That is Walt Disney. What does Neptune govern? Neptune governs things like fantasy, storytelling, design, cartoon, visual things like that. So when I see Neptune in the 10th house, I know that this person is a storyteller, that this person likes the fantasy world, and that this person is somebody who would be great at something like graphic design and somebody who would be great at things like storytelling in whatever form that could be. Anything creative or inspiring falls under Neptune. And Neptune is in the 10th house. So we also have Neptune in Capricorn. Okay. So that adds a little bit of depth to our reading. So now we know, okay, we've got Neptune in the 10th house. Cool. Neptune is going to be connected to her career. But we also know that Neptune is connected to Cap. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, Capricorn is earth energy. So if we want to take a look at the lens of Neptune, the idea of storytelling as a career as something bound to the earth. So we might consider, instead of fantasy stories necessarily, what if she told real stories? So the thing that comes to mind is this movie called Pan's Labyrinth, which is the fantasy story of a very real story of the Spanish Civil War. Now, as you're watching this movie, you go through the Civil War, which was actual, it's historical events, but we go through it with a fantasy sort of lens. So the things that are happening to this girl, although they're paralleled with the Civil War, aren't real things that would happen. She comes across monsters and goes through portals and stuff like that. So this is an example of that kind of energy and how it would show up. A real event, telling the story, but connecting it to fantasy. Okay. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the screenwriter or something like that had Neptune in their 10th house in Capricorn as well, right? Because that's the kind of energy that it is. So for her, storytelling or fantasy or, beauty, design are going to be down to earth, and they're going to have a lot of wisdom about them, because Capricorn is the most mature of all the earth signs, which means that Capricorn knows things very diligently, follows things, is very down to earth, and is very wise in those matters. Okay. Just like they say the typical Virgo is like highly organized. You've probably heard that before. And that's because Virgo's earth energy. And so they're sort of that highly organized type of energy. Capricorn is the natural maturity of that Virgo energy. So things are planned out, but there's less nervousness about it and more wisdom, as if like a grandmother would be separating out her money into cash. She would pull out the cash every month from the bank and put them into envelopes. So that's that type of energy, Capricorn. So as you can see, we can start to paint a picture. Okay, so let's take a look then at the next planet that she's got in her 10th house, which is Uranus. And Uranus is a planet that is all about change, surprise, and originality. So when I see Uranus in somebody's 10th house, I see somebody who is not going to have a normal 9 to 5 job. Okay. There's somebody who is going to follow their own path and do it in a way that makes sense to them. And this is only highlighted even more so when we see that Uranus is in Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius is just this go your own way. You can go your own way. Right? Sagittarius is this energy that is trailblazing, that brings new ideas and new things and a new way of doing things, because Sagittarius, mind you, is the natural conclusion of the fire energy. So it's like, how do I describe it? It's like I've been there, done that, and now I want to do all of the new things. And I don't care about anything that's conventional or in the past. And this is highlighted as well as having Uranus in the 10th house. So, along with the storytelling element and along with the earthly energy that we see we have in Neptune, we also have somebody here, who is somebody who's just very going to be very original in her career. It's not going to, she's not going to be a banker. You know, she's going to be the person whose career is like, um, like, the banker hires her to like, organize her closet based on color, and then also hire her to walk the dog and to teach the dog French. I mean, it's like that kind of energy. It's not conventional whatsoever. And there's a lot of room for play, a lot of room for side gigs. Often people who have their 10th house in Sag, which she does, are people who play with their careers a lot and have a lot of new side gigs and tend to kind of jump around. So what I always tell people with career with 10th house in Sag is, don't feel bad if you have a lot of careers over your lifetime. Don't feel like you're lost. You're not lost. That's who you are. It just makes sense for you, right? To be all over the place because you've got an appetite for life and you want to consume it all. Somebody with she's got nothing in her 6th house, really, planet wise. Not really. She just doesn't have anything in her 6th house, planet wise, but that's okay. We can still take a look at the fact that her 6th house is in Leo. And that tells us some things. For example, family is really important to her, luxury is important to her. And if we remember that the 6th house has to do with service and health, we know that also some things in her career that might be important for her are luxury and self-care and service to family. And yeah, I would say those are the main things. So for her career wise, now this is not the strongest pull in her career. As you can see, the 10th house is a lot more pull, but there may be a certain aspect of like regalness or royalness to the things that she wants to do. So we see that we've got Capricorn in Jupiter in the 10th house. So we know that, maybe she would make like a luxurious face cream or something, or service to the family. So maybe she's telling the stories of people who are going to be passing away soon. And, but doing so in a way that kind of, that honors the Neptune in the 10th house. So telling like the stories of grandmothers of her, like let's give the example of my grandmother who grew up in Germany. So imagine she might be a person who tells this beautiful, fantastical story of my grandmother for me, and that's like her gift to the world is writing down the story of my grandmother as if it were a movie or a play, and then that's the service that she offers me. Because that would include the elements of family, which is highly important in Leo. That would include the luxury, because this is not something that just anybody could do, but it's got a real familial duty to it. So that would be important for Leos. It's got the Neptune as far as the storytelling and adding a fantasy element to it. And then it's got the Capricorn down to earth. So going back down to the roots of the family. So that's just an example of something that she would do. All right, so the final thing that we're going to look at here is the is the second house for M. And for M, the second house doesn't have much going on in it except for the North Node. Okay, so this is the North Node symbol right here. And the North Node, there's some, differing opinions about the North Node, but basically the North Node is your personal path in this lifetime. Now, some people have called it like your karmic path. So there's a North Node and obviously the South Node, right? So they're opposite each other. And in this case, she's got the North Node in Taurus. So her South Node would be in Scorpio. So for her, something that would be really important would be moving towards loyalty. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, she's got it in Taurus. Okay. Moving towards loyalty and moving towards being able to make plans in a very methodical way. Okay. So Taurans are the first of the earth signs. So they're just beginning to experience what we like to call abundance and pleasure. So money and abundance and pleasure are going to be something that she needs to look for in her life. Money and abundance and sensual pleasure. So there may be some healing to be done around the sensual nature of money. So purchasing things for herself that bring her sensual pleasure, right? Like a beautiful body cream or like a nice massage oil or like sex toys. I don't know, something like that. Sensual pleasure, because Taurus is the ruler of the sacral chakra, right? So there may be something there for her as far as money and healing in this lifetime. Taurans are also very loyal and very friendly, very, very, very loyal to their friends, and very, cut and dry kind of people, right? So for her moving forward in her lifetime, it would be wise for her to think about how she can use her money in a way that that honors that journey that she's taken karmically. She wants to be a little bit more practical and leave behind the overly emotional, traumatic depth that is Scorpio and into something that's just like Tauran energy. It's like blah, right? It's not blah. It's like, I don't care about that emotional depth. That's not really my deal. I'm not here to take care of other people's emotions. I'm here to follow what feels right for me. Okay. So that would be the trajectory of her in earning her money and in spending her money. Okay. Finally, we can see that her second house is in Aries. And what does that mean to me? So let's go ahead and draw this. There's not much else going on in the second house, but we know that it's in Aries. Okay. What does that mean? She's a go-getter when it comes to earning money. Now, the hidden money is another thing that we're going to talk about another day, because those are one of my favorite charts to pull and one of the most popular, because money, is on people's minds a lot. But it has to do with career in the sense that you do earn money through your career sometimes. And we know that Aries energy is very go-getter energy, very focused energy. It's not energy that's going to pussyfoot, excuse my language, around. It's energy that's just going to go for it. That's going to make it happen. Okay. And that is money in the second house. So let's do a once through of everything that we've talked about so that M can kind of get a picture of what a career might be good for her. The emphasis that we're mainly seeing in her chart is the 10th house, because there's just so much going on over there. So yeah, the 6th house can tell us a little bit about sensual pleasure, about luxury, same thing in the 2nd house. But the real crux of what her career is going to mean is coming from the 10th house. She's going to be telling stories that have to do with beauty, and she can tell those stories however she wants to tell them. She could be a copywriter for all I care. She could be a dancer. However, she's transmitting the interior to the exterior. It is going to be highly important for her. It's going to be a non-conventional career. And she may have many different side gigs. She may have many different careers in her lifetime, and that's okay. That's who she is. But storytelling that's down to earth. Maybe she's writing out letters to people, and those letters are from deceased or ancestors or past lives or something, and she's writing it out with her hand. Anything that has to do with physical things for these stories is going to be so powerful for her. Okay. All right, you guys. First, a very, very, very big thank you to Em for letting us take a look at your chart and use you as our little guinea pig for today. And I hope that helped you guys understand a little bit what a career reading would look like, whether you're receiving one or giving one. Go ahead and take a look at the 2 links that I've linked in the description box below. Well, there's more than 2 links. The first link is my Etsy shop. So if you would like to receive a reading of this sort, you can go ahead and take a look at those. The second shop is for people who like to give readings. Okay, so there are cheat sheets in there that give you all of this information like on one sheet of paper. Okay, so the planets, the houses, you can have it all kind of right here. So in case you need to reference anything at any point in time, you don't have to keep it all in your noggin. You can have it around you. That's the second Etsy shop that I have. And then the third link that I'm going to be providing for you guys is our Facebook group. Now, some of you may be coming from the Facebook group, in which case, welcome to my YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe. But if you're seeing this from YouTube, go ahead and enter into the Facebook group. We hang out in there. We do chart readings. We can also share our readings. We can also do readings for other people. It's a space for us to practice tarot and astrology and all things spiritual. And you're welcome to actually share your services in that group. So that's allowed once a week, currently on Mondays, although that might change. You can share whatever your offer is, as long as it has to do with tarot, astrology, or something spiritual. So anything under that umbrella. Thank you guys so much for watching. And like I said, please in the comment section, let me know what questions you have so that I know what kinds of videos I can make for you guys in the future. And a big thank you to Em for participating. Bye, guys.